All right, so textbook information is at the top of this document here. So, all right, so we got two exams this term. So we have a midterm, we have a final. All right, we got our behavior management topic, in which case you'll be selecting a topic for your behavioral management plan. You'll get credit for the topic, and basically I want like a one-page write-up about the topic, why you chose it, what you hope to learn from it, etc. Then we'll have our behavior management plan, where you do an actual assessment of maybe a case, or maybe something dealing with a personal sort of issue, or someone close that you know. I'll decide that later. Then we have just some homework, which are the assignments that's on syllabus per week. And those correspond to the chapters in the book, listed with the pages that you can follow. And class participation and attendance, which is important for me. Right? I like good attendance and some participation as well too. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of the grading, and everything else is listed on there for you to follow. The textbook all submitted after class today to the bookstore. If you choose to get it from there, it's in somewhat older textbooks. So if you want to find it on Amazon or somewhere else, I'm pretty sure you can get it cheaper that way, or an ebook if you choose. Any questions so far? Okay, talking about behavior, right? Well, first we have to understand what a behavior is. Well, what do you think a behavior is? In your own words. What's your definition of a behavior? Just action. How you act. Anyone else can contribute something else to that? What's unique about a behavior? What else could we give insight about behavior? Right, we could say an action that is driven by some sort of stimulus internally or externally. Right, so either driven by the external environment, something happening on the outside world, or something that's driven internally, right? It could be things dealing with hormones, right? It could be things dealing with a particular feeling, a sensation. It could be things dealing with some sort of mental perception or other processes mentally, right? So behavior is something that is expressed outwardly. It is an action and it is observable. It has to be able to be observed in order for it to be manifested as an actual actionable behavior. All right, it's aggregate responses to internal, external stimuli, which means that a lot of things are going on in order for a behavior to occur. There's not just one simple process going on, right? You need a lot of physiological stimulus in order for a behavior to occur, right? Even in the behavior of scratching your head, right? Clicking your pen. Although it seems very simple in outward action, internally there's a lot of mechanisms physiologically that are making that action happen. Now, also for a behavior to exist, you have to have the ability to have that behavior, right? So we have a behavior of walking, right? You exhibit a lot of walking. You have to have the ability to walk, right? If you don't have an ability to walk, we will call that what? You don't have the ability, you have a what? Disability, right? You're disabled in that particular action, something you cannot do. Right? The other thing is you need a motivation. Typically, no one just does anything for no reason at all, right? There's a drive, there's a motivation, even in the most minute actions, right? There's there's drive, and there's motivation to do something. Motivation could be anything. We can say, hey, motivation is boredom, right? Think of when you're outside or doing something and you're just like, oh, let me look at my phone and see what's going on. That's boredom, right? And so you have a motivation and drive to regulate that boredom with doing an activity, an action, which is scrolling through Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, see what's going on, look up ESPN sports, right? You need a motivation for it. All right, behavior is psychological. It's processed through the brain. It's centered there in order to manifest something from that motivation, right? So it's something of a mental process. It's automatic, right? Which means that in our body we have automatic processes, right? You may just have a knee-jerk reaction to something, right? You still have a reason for doing it, right? There's a reason behind it, but it can be an automatic process, right? If someone were to tickle you, you will automatically laugh, right? And you say, let me control it, let me think about it real hard. You probably still laugh, because it's still an automatic process, right? Physiologically. Which means a lot of automatic lives in our long-term memory and in our somatic sort of systems, right? Parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous systems, things of that nature. And it's manifested in the social environment, right? Which means we need another person to observe it, right? You just sit in a room by yourself and talk to yourself as the behavior useless to anyone else other than yourself. So it's a social thing. It has to be observable by another person. You have to have an interaction with others for it to be meaningful, right? For it to mean anything. Any questions so far? Okay. All right, so how do we change behavior? On a personal level, who here has tried to change their behavior in some way recently? Or even say, since you graduated from whatever, high school, came to college. Yes, what have you tried to change?
I think just change like little things and just think about my day, try to like not be so like lethargic or slow about it, like try to have like more energy, more attitude, positivity.
All right, more energy, more positivity, more motivation, and more drive. You're like, oh man, I'm not in these areas during the day. I just don't feel the drive. I'm like, what's up with me, right? Where's my motivation at first stuff? I need to amp up to be more progressive, right? So like I'm completing stuff, meaningful stuff. So what have you done to alter those behaviors? What have you tried, experimented with?
More effective.
Okay, so think about it. We can actually take something. You're like, hey, man, I want to change my behavior for being more motivated, having more energy, right? We could say, well, let's do a chemical change. We alter brain chemistry with caffeine, which I do too, first thing in the morning, right? Caffeine is shown to have the same net positive effects as cocaine, right? It's just we don't view it that way, right? So when I go to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, I'm like, give me my coffee, I need my coffee every morning. I'm showing up to my dealer every day, like, dude, give me some cocaine, I need some dope, right? If not, if I don't get this dope, 2 days I'm gonna have a massive migraine headache from coffee, caffeine withdrawal, right? So same process, right? It's just a perspective. So more energy. What else? Have you tried anything other than?
Try and like specifically at work, like if I try and go and make a point, I smile at more people, and just makes them feel better and makes it easier to be more energetic and interact with them.
Okay. So we like, hey, you know what? Let's possibly do something that you actually don't want to do.
Yeah.
Right? Let's say, okay, if if I smile more, will I be happier? But that physical action, me smiling more at people at work or at school manifests into a different feeling or emotion or sensation inside me. Possibly, right? Maybe it could if there's a certain response, right? You're like, hey, if I smile at the right person today. I smiled at 100 people today who try to alter my behavior. But you know what? That one smile led to is a really in-depth conversation with this person, or maybe a possible date or something, right? Something that came out positive from it, and therefore we can say, you know what? Maybe this actually works in a social context, right? Smiling at your face in the mirror. Maybe we could experiment with that too. Let's go in the mirror and smile at ourselves and see if it makes us feel different. You know, like, maybe no, feel nothing. But we do it in a social context with others. We're like, you know what? Cause and effect. Wow, this is interesting. This is behaviorism, right? Let me give you something. I give you a benefit. We talked about conditional learning, obviously. Taking other classes like, hey, how can you condition learning through behavioralism, right? B.F. Skinner, introducing a positive stimulus. So a smile to another person is a positive stimulus, right? So you're like, okay, here's a gift, a smile. And then you're like, man, I don't know what they were going through. They might have it crappy. They might feel worse than I do on average, but now it's changed them. They're like, oh wow, why is someone, you didn't have to smile, you gave me something. And they will reciprocate, and maybe it lends to something else. So therefore, we can even assess some of that, like intricately, and be like, this is interesting. Huh. So human beings do respond to a stimulus. Stimulus being a smile. There's a response, and the response may come out to be a very positive outcome. So maybe like, you know what? That drive to get that response. I want to get more of that response, right? I want more of that. That's my new coffee. Right? That new response is my high. And so you may see people who are extremely positive all the time, very amped up, or maybe we call them extroverts, right? Which means that in a nuanced way, you smiling at people, you need to get their energy. You need to absorb energy from them. Now, will they be left with less energy? Yes. Right? That's how it works. This is physics, maybe in some sense, but you need it, right? You need it for your own benefit. Maybe they hit too much, so that's not no concern to you. But they will respond and show you, right? Then an introvert, they're like, man, I gotta get out of here. You take too much of my energy, I'm gone, right? Because they know that they have a limited amount of energy and they can't give it to everybody, right? And that's why they retreat, hold on to it. So yes, think how deep it could go. Something very simple you could do as a driver, motivation to alter your overall day, your behavior in your day. Simply from a smile, right? Simple. We make those observations like, well, what else could we do to change people's behavior? Right? I think one of the most dominant things we could do is to make people laugh. Right? Typically, if people make you laugh, you feel just like, oh my gosh, I feel energized. Automatically, you go listen to a podcast, comedy skit, whoever, Dave Chappelle, somebody like that. And after you listen to the jokes, you're like, man, I feel a lot more energetic. Like, what was up with that, right? You've reached down deep inside of you, your nervous system engaged in reactions to extract some energy out of it. And if you can make others laugh, you're like, wow, now they are willing to probably want to be around me a lot more, right? There's an attraction there. It doesn't have to be physical or anything. You're like, there's attraction in some sort of like, I want some more of that laughter. I'm coming back for more. So think of that too. Maybe introduce some jokes. See, like experiment, right? So think of these mental experiments with our mind's a laboratory. We're like, you know what? Let me look up 5 great jokes that are short, that are kind of universal and apply to everybody, right? One for the guys, one for the girls, and then you test them on people in the midst of the conversation. See the reaction. You might find like, wow, this worked. Now we get into devious territory. Because now we know that we can manipulate human behavior. Right? And it doesn't mean have to be devious, it depends on the person, right? Some people use it for good, some people use it for bad. But it can be done. You can ask anybody, you can make somebody fall in love with you. It can be done. You can make somebody give you money, right? Salespeople. It could be done. Somebody can sell you something that you didn't want to buy beforehand. Right? It can be done. You can alter people's behavior by altering the perception of the other person. Magnificent stuff, powerful stuff, and that could change everything in your mind. You're like politicians, right? That's not the real person you see up there. Don't ever believe that. That's what a politician is, like a fake person. It's a personality. Call it a personality. Okay, so strategy for change. Well, first I would say we've come here we're seeking a diagnosis, right? We're seeking a final result. Hey, you have multiple personality disorder, right? You have substance abuse disorder, right? Things dealing with alcohol, all sorts of things. We can think of anything, right? We do that by using a proper assessment, which is this class is kind of all about, figuring out ways and tools and means and established methods for how we could go about assessing behavior properly so that we can have a plan to change it, right? Primarily, this textbook looks at like social services. So you think of more like social work, right? Working in schools, counseling, things like that, which is sort of the big medium for how we use this stuff. So I wouldn't say we're looking primarily at like being researchers or anything, but we're looking to say what are the best practices and methods for it, right? Out there in the real world. All right, so yeah, we'll need some framework. What have others established on this particular issue, right? How have they gone about assessing this issue? What are the models they use? What are some of the theories behind it? And then we want to try to understand it a little bit more. So we figure out all the frameworks, the models, the theories, and we're like, okay, I have a good idea of what drives this particular behavior, right? What are some of the outcomes if you could change it? And what are some of the methods to change it, right? And therefore you can understand one particular behavior very well if you kind of use all these proper assessments here. And then context is important. Context is always important, right? Because context is like people. Oh, what people, right? Men. What men are you talking about? Right? Children. What children? Adolescents. What ages specifically? Right? Context matters. Children where? Oh, the children that's in school. The children's on playground. Children where? Wearing what? Right? Children with the Nike sneakers at the playground, right? Context matters, right? We think of the environment in which it happens. So for any behavior, like, okay, man, I like to get drunk. Interesting. Where do you get drunk? Usually. Are you a person that goes to a neighborhood tavern, right? No, I like to just do it on the couch. Okay, cool. What are you usually watching? Sports. Right? What are you usually drinking? Beer. What time are you usually allowing this to happen? Right after work. Right? Context. We need all this information so that we're not just kind of lumping into, oh, you're alcoholic. Right? Well, let's see if some other things drive that behavior. Might be something else. It might be work. Yeah, like you're not really alcoholic. You're just traumatized by work, and there's some sort of release from it or something. Who knows? All right, and then the next slide we'll look at behavior change wheel, which kind of gives us a diagram of all the nuances and facets of behavioral change. All right, so we talked about capability, opportunity, and motivation for a certain behavior. Are you capable of having that behavior? We said some people have the ability, some people are disabled. They aren't capable of doing it. Even cognitively, are you capable of committing this crime? Right? You may establish that, no, that person's incapable. That 2-year-old can kill 20 people with a butter knife. Right? Incapable. Opportunity. Do you have the opportunity to do it? You can't afford heroin, $2,000 an ounce, a gram, whatever. You can't afford whatever, cocaine. Guess what? You don't have the opportunity. Right? You're like, man, I wish there was. Bad, too bad I can't afford it. You have an opportunity to do something. And are you motivated and have the drive for such things? Right? This also relates to change. Are you capable of change? Do you have an opportunity to change? Right? Do you have the time to change, to actually think about your behavior? And are you motivated to change? Change is the most difficult thing for people past, it gets worse as you get older. Right? Someone past the age of 40 and you're trying to meet them and date and alter their perceptions and beliefs so they conform to yours, good luck. You know, and the longer we live, the more it's embedded into our long-term memory. It becomes actually just who we are. Right? Extremely difficult. Don't say you can't change, but it becomes more difficult over time. And that deals with the enduring part. Right? Is the behavior enduring? How long have you had this behavior for? If you had it for a month, not that bad. Had it for a couple of years, might be bad. Right? We need to know how long has it been present. And can you change? Can change be enduring? You're like, all right, I'm on this new plan. Right? I'm trying to manage my behavior. I got a new strategy. But then I find myself not regulating to it after a month. Right? I relapse. I go back to my old ways. Think of the most common, what's the most common sort of behavior that maybe all of us have where it could get out of control and we relapse really quickly in terms of like actionable behaviors? What do all of us like to do? What are you going to do in the middle of the day between classes at Concordia? Eat, right? There you go. I like to eat. Who doesn't like to eat? Who doesn't love really good food, something sweet from Starbucks, right? Frappuccino, macchiato. You're like, okay, this is a behavior. Behavior of eating's for all of us, right? We need nutrition. But some of us may take it out of hand, right? And other factors attribute, right? Genetics attribute, all sorts of things. Stress attribute to if we're eating or not. Blood glucose level, stuff like that. But we could say, hey, eating is a problem, right? Like, I like too much of bad food. That's bad for me. It's bad for me, may not be bad for everybody else, but it's bad for me. And it make me have a sugar crash or something. Now I'm lethargic, like you were talking about, like lethargic and sleepy, I don't want to do anything, and now I have motivation, things like that. How do we go about changing that? It's extremely difficult. That's why we have so many diet plans, right? The new one, paleo, right? Atkins can always be a new one in some way to show you how to change, but usually people fall back into their old behavior. Someone keep track of time. What time is it? 31? Okay. Okay, behavior change wheel, right? So this is what we as psychologists use to sort of represent a lot of these motive capabilities, opportunities, motivations, right? And sort of how they take place, and then different sort of protocols form, mediums. So in the green, we're looking at the sources. Here are sources of behavior, right? Our sources of behavior could be physical, right? Could be social, right? They only happen in the social environment. Psychological, Maybe we're just at thinking, we're just thinking bad, and we create these compulsions to act. And then automatic, right? Things that deal with the sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system and our automated processes and things like that. All right, and then on here, we have our TDF domains, which are really just kind of looking at the same thing, which are social, physical, cognitive, memory, reinforcement, things like that. And intervention functions. How do we intervene to change the function of these behaviors? Well, we could do coercion, right? We could kind of force people in some way, right? To make change or create motivations for them. We can educate in order to change behavior, make people more aware, conscious. Environmental restructuring. If environment is your issue in terms of your behavior, maybe the bars are an issue, get away from bars, right? Or maybe change your entire home. If your home is too relaxed and it's conducive for you to be eating poorly or using alcohol to a high degree, maybe you change the layout, right? Maybe you put obstacles in front of alcohol, right? Maybe you put two things side by side to make you consciously aware that, hey, you know what, we're gonna do that. Training your mind, right? Training your mind, training your body. So physically you can train, and maybe you can work out, exercise, do meditation, do yoga, and maybe that influences your behavior in some way, right? Or maybe you could do some reading, certain types of reading, certain types of thinking methods in order to change your behavior. Restrictions, just placing little obstacles for you not to be able to access the behavior, persuasion, incentivization, which means giving some sort of positive benefit for not doing the behavior, etc. And then on the outside is sort of the bigger picture, right? Which means how does government and society go about helping these things? All right, so we could say there are new guidelines from our government, right, to give maybe funding to social services. So we got social planning, environmental things, maybe things in the environment need to be changed on the larger level, right? Communication, marketing, so maybe we send out advertisement, clips on billboard, to make people more aware of the serious issue that's occurring. Legislation, we change the laws about things that are maybe not conducive for good positive health and mental health overall. Service providers, regulations, and fiscal measures and guidelines. All right, so the book will be talking about BX, but basically we're talking about the behavior of X, right? The behavior of an individual, right? And it could be yourself. So think about, I would say try to relate anything we're covering in terms of behavior to self. And say, hey, what could be a common link between this particular concept and myself, right? You may not exhibit the behavior at all, but you may find some sort of connection that's related to a behavior. All right, so is walking a behavior? What do you think? Walking a behavior? Can be, right? So it has to be actionable, observable. Right? So let's see you walking. Sadness, is that a behavior? Can we observe and measure sadness? Maybe not. Sadness is too abstract. Sadness is an emotion, right? And think we have to be able, in order to properly assess, which is our goal in this class, it has to be observable. So I don't know if I can observe his sadness. Maybe I can other ways. Like, okay, well, sadness is a symptom. But a symptom of what? Right? A symptom of you cutting yourself every 2 weeks or something. Well, okay, there's an action. There's a behavior. So sadness could be a component of that action of cutting. Right? The sadness itself is not observable. Low self-esteem. Yay or nay? No. Sitting still. Yes. Right? Okay, we can see it. Thinking. No, right? We can't observe that. That's the biggest one, right? None of us know what any of us are thinking at any point in time. Right? That's the greatest, like, sort of power out there in the universe. Like, they could take everything away from you, but they can't, or they could try to control everything, but they really can't control your thinking if you don't allow them to. All right, looking between difference between covert and overt, behaviors. Remember we said we need a stimulus. So in classical condition, we see that there's a stimulus introduced to a party, right? Something that gives rise to a person in order for them to act or respond, right? And that thing could be either positive or negative. Be a positive stimulus, negative stimulus, or it could be neutral. It has no effect, right? No effect whatsoever. So in order to understand what sort of overt and covert behavior that exhibits itself, we need to understand some of those. What are stimulus being presented, right? And does the stimulus create any sort of action, positive action, negative action, or it creates no action? All right, definitions are important. How we define things, right? Because words are powerful, right? And so if one were to diagnose, which happens quite often now, children with autism, and we say, anybody here has children? No? So think if you had a small child and they were going to whatever, daycare, school, pre-K, and now the teachers may think that your child is autistic, right? That's pretty powerful. You're gonna feel away. You're like, wait, my child? How? This is impossible. Not my child. Those kids. So if you accept that from people who are not professionals, right? People just giving opinions, assumptions, you can treat your child a certain way, right? Because now in your mind, autism, which is a huge spectrum, you're like, what is autism? It's a social thing, right? It's your interactions with others. Whether you want to conform in a classroom, you're like, hey, maybe organized classrooms not my thing, right? Maybe I should go to some school where they do independent learning, right? It's one person, you go to one classroom. So it doesn't fit everybody, but it's such a huge thing that is generalized and taken out of context oftentimes. But it has results that can be detrimental because you begin to treat your child differently. Others will too if you accept that definition. Words are powerful. Well, yeah, phrases are powerful. Right? Low self-esteem. What's your definition of low self-esteem? What's low self-esteem to you? When you see it or hear people say it, you know, oh, man, that person has low self-esteem. Or they may say it to you. Yes? Yes, let's say you may think in a negative view of yourself in reference to others, right? We always need a frame of reference, right? You like, everybody think bad about me. Bad as hell, right? Has to be a frame of reference. You like, hell, for my age, I should be doing much better, right? I should be in college and doing this and get a job. How come I don't have a car? My friends just lease a BMW and get a condo, right? So you could have a frame of reference of all sorts of things, and now you measure yourself against that. In which case, you know, if it's low, it will probably bring yourself some harm. So it's a worldview of self, right? A worldview of self in reference to others. But if just projected outwardly all the time, I think becomes confusing to people, and now they just feel worse about themselves. You know, you tell me like, oh, you got low self-esteem. That might be the issue, right? Might be some other stuff. Like, I just had a bad week, that's it. There's some other stuff going on. Right? Maybe it hasn't been long-term enough to be low self-esteem. Maybe low self-esteem takes a long time for it to be a real thing. Right? Enduring, we'll call it. Hostile. What's hostile? What's hostile? To show hostility. Right? We say, well, hostile is maybe showing aggression in a particular context, right? Because aggression may be needed in certain contexts, in which case it's not hostile, right? Certain environments, that same hostility is not the same. But in others we say, oh, in this environment you're being hostile, you're being aggressive in this particular context. The point is for us to think deeply about the things we say, right? So as future clinicians, therapists, counselors, what have you, it's important to use the sort of right words, right? Because to the untrained person, they are very powerful. And what they'll do is they'll become absorbed and people will be neurotic about what you said. Right? And even as a therapist, you can make those sorts of mistakes. You can say something that'll trigger people. Seething, hard to get along with. Okay, hard to get along with. What does that mean? Who here finds that people say you're hard to get along with? Or know someone who's hard to get along with? Yourself or others? What kind of behaviors do they display that make them hard to get along with? So you try to one-up everybody in every context. All right, so hard to get along with. We say a person who's trying to outshine everybody, right? Every time outdo everybody, right? You bought yourself a Honda, now you're talking about they bought themselves a Lexus or something, right? You're gonna say?
Yeah, my coworkers are not
Did they say why? What, because of what behaviors?
I don't make them do their jobs in the correct way.
So think about that. You make them do the job according to the protocols of the position, right? And for them, maybe the issue is like, hey, I didn't think this was the culture of this company. I thought we were a little bit more lax and stuff, right? Two different perspectives. Like, no, that's not the case, right? What's the point of hard to get along? Context matters again. Who's saying it, and who are we saying it to? Two different positions where these people stand, right? So the environment matters. It could be at a workplace. And what are some of the factors that could take shape to make the person perceive that? Well, culture is important, right? if you come from a culture that's not strict, and you're trying to induce strictness, there'll be an issue. Right? So in Europe, specifically like Italy, to show up late 15 minutes is like nothing, right? Try doing that at your job here every day. Just walk in. It's like, don't worry about it. But in Italy, that's how it is, you know? It's fine to show up. No one shows up on time looking at their watch. Oh my gosh, you're late. Can't believe you're 2 minutes late, right? Culture matters, right? And where, you know, your culture comes from matters. All right, so vague language, right? Which is equal to bad, low self-esteem, bored, unreliable, sad, happy. Very vague. It doesn't give any sort of specific insight into anything about anybody. Sad about what? Right? Low self-esteem, how? Bored, when? Right? Unreliable, to who? Right? So our things is to take the general and try to filter down and get a little bit more specific. All right, now how can they manifest themselves outwardly? Okay, we say behavior, actions, crime. Okay, low self-esteem related to crime. I'm saying, you know, I can't believe I'm not hitting all the markers I want to hit in life. I'm not where I want to be, right? And you cry about it. Like, wow, that's interesting. Let's observe that behavior of crime. Bored, you twiddle your thumbs, you click your pen, you look on Instagram, you do whatever. Right? Unreliable. Okay, so we'll talk about. But here are manifestations of things, which are laughing and sweating and stuttering. Or unreliable, here they're saying showing up late to work 3 days in a row. That's natural behavior. 3 days in a row, you're like, okay, this is notice. Right? So how do we describe behavior of people, right? Positive and observable. He didn't do his homework, right? Or he watched TV for 2 hours last night. 2 different approaches. Hey, you didn't do something. Maybe that seems negative. Hey, you watched TV for 2 hours. In which turn didn't allow you to do the homework, right? So how we approach speaking about something, about a behavior, is just as important. Because we want to be positive about it oftentimes. Negative typically makes people feel worse about their issue. What time is it? Okay. All right, we'll stop off here. Like I said, the syllabus is up on Blackboard. Check out the textbook. I'm going to go down to the bookstore today to put it in if you want to get it from the bookstore. If not, it's a somewhat older textbook. You can get it for maybe cheaper online. So check it out. And I will see you on Friday. Take care.